All right, everybody, Aggie Band. This is going to be our introduction to how we're going to see notes when they're on our staff. So remember, this is called a staff. A staff is a set of 5 lines from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 4 spaces, again from the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, notice there's something kind of crazy that's missing here. We don't have a clef. So without a clef, do I know what notes are on each of these lines? Nope, I sure don't. Okay, so these lines could be any notes, anything. A, B, C, D, E, F, or G. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what? I started on trumpet when I was in 5th grade. So I'm going to do a treble clef because treble clef is what trumpets play in. So I'm going to make my nice little curvy thing. And remember what I talked about, the curve, that G-looking shape, goes around what line? That line is G, okay? So if that's G, that means that we use our little mnemonic device for treble clef, which was every good band does fine. Those are our lines and our spaces. Does everyone remember those? I'll give you a second to say them to yourself if you've forgotten. Okay, good. It's bass, F, A, C, and E. So point at your lines, say them together. Every good band does fine. And then your spaces, F, A, C, E. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a couple of our notes that we just learned. I'm going to get us to write them. Okay, so if you've got your lines here, let's write a half note. That's right, everybody, a half note in the C space. So what I do is I look at my note names and I figure out where C is. C on treble clef is the 3rd space. Remember when I say 3rd, I'm not talking from the top. We always go from the bottom. So F, A, C in that 3rd space. And you know what? I said let's write a half note. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a half note, which is an open note head. And then don't forget, that's a whole note like that. To make it a half note, I just add a stem. Remember what I said? Whether the stem is going down or up, doesn't matter, except that, remember, we go higher on the clef, we have to put the stem down. So that means that this note is a half note, and it is on the space for C. Okay? Now, I'm going to give you a challenge. I'm going to tell you a note, and I want you to try and write that note on a clef at home. Okay, let me tell you a note, and I'm going to write it for you here in a second. Parents or kids, if you want to pause this while you do it, that'd be awesome. Let's find a G. And on that G, let's write a quarter note. All right, go for it. Okay, cool. So if you pause that video, you may have done it, or I gave you a couple seconds there. So let's find out where G is first. So G, is G in the word face? It's not. But G is in every good band does fine. Every good. So that means that G is our 2nd line. So let's count up every good. That line right there. So that's where I'm going to put my quarter note. So remember what a quarter note is. What kind of head? We have a note head, but that looks like a whole note or a half note. A quarter note is filled in. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill in that note head. That is, and notice it's on the G line. Then what else does a quarter note have? A quarter note has a stem. So we're going to put a stem going up and remind ourselves, does a quarter note have a flag? You say, no, it does not. An 8th note has a flag. So a quarter note is a note head filled in with a stem, and guess what? It's on the line that is G. So see how that's done? Now, I'm going to put a little line here. Just give us some separation. And I'm going to write in a bass clef. Remember, bass clef tells us where F is. So now what I want to do is let's erase all our note names over here. And let's review what the words are for the bass clef. For bass clef, from the bottom, we get good burritos don't fall apart. So our lines are G, B, D, F, and A, always from the bottom. Then our spaces are all cows eat grass. A, C, E, and G. All cows eat grass. Good burritos don't fall apart. All right, and that puts F right there. So let's do this. Let's do something fun. Let's put a whole note on the A space. The A space. And I said the space because there are two A's here. There's an A in the bottom space, and there's an A on the top line. But I said A in the space, so that means down here. So I would take a whole note, which is an empty note head, no fill in, no stem, no flag, and I just put it in the space that corresponds to A. All right? Now, a challenge. Let's make an eighth note. Remember how an eighth note looks? I hope so. Go back and review the other video. If not, we're going to put an eighth note where E is. So in bass clef, let's figure out where E is. We've got good burritos don't fall apart. That's tough. There's no E in there. But all cars eat. Starts with E. So that means we put our eighth note right here. Now, remember what an eighth note looks like. It's like a quarter note. It's got a filled in note head. So let's put our note head first. Just like that. That nice filled in note head like that. Okay. Then it has a stem. But remember, once we get this high, we have to go down. So it has a stem. And then what else does an eighth note have? Does it have a flag? It sure does. So we put a little flag, just like that. So there is an eighth note, a filled-in note head with a stem and one flag. And guess where it is? It's in the space of bass clef that corresponds with E. All right, guys, so there's your first introduction to how to write notes on your staff.